Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei. Okay, so Be'ezus Hashem, we jump back into our learning of sefer Yichud HaHisbodedus, and we are in the 6th chapter, and we are on the letter Hey. So there are 2 different packets. If you have the one that started from the beginning, you just turn a page or 2, or you have the second one. But try to find the letter Hey if you can. It's on page Samach Beis. So in the newer booklets, it's just on the right in the front page. And the Tzaddik continues speaking about this dual possibility of relationship, where there's a relationship of chitzonius on the outside, and there's a relationship of the pnimius. And he's been belaboring this point because it's such a nuanced one, and it's such a deep one, and it's such a simple one, but it's such a crucially important one that we have to say it again and again and again and again and again. So here he says like this, V'zeh klal gadol, and the following is a very crucial and important principle. Shekasher mesasik b'chein chitzoni, when in a relationship, the bulk of the relationship and the focus is on what's called chen chitzoni, an external kind of grace. Achein magia yoser b'mihiras al hislabos. It is easier for a person to more easily come to some kind of excitement in the relationship, passion in the relationship. I think, today's parlance, we would probably call it infatuation, right? Where there's something external about the person, there's something attractive on a personality level where a person just falls head over heels, right? Way, way, way quickly. And it can seem like a really strong relationship. And it would appear that these 2 people are deeply, deeply connected. But it's also possible, like you say, you can fall into love, you fall out of love, right? Just as quickly. But it could be that with time, and sometimes a very short period of time, it's revealed that the person actually lost much more than they gained. Because the primary essence of what a relationship is supposed to be, it's possible that even though on the outside there was a very strong obsession, but there was nothing deep that was built. The foundations for a relationship, which like we learned last week and previous year before that and before that and before that, in other words, the more that a person connects to the parts of the relationship that even when everything else falls away, those things remain. So it could be that they never got to that point in the connection. And when a person places their whole goal, and they focus their whole intention on finding that inner grace, that true essence, the beauty that isn't just skin deep, but the beauty that goes deep, deep on the level of one soul connecting to another, by coming to discover, what is this individual sitting opposite me? Who is this person? How can I reveal my soul so that my soul can connect with this person's soul? And not the person's jewelry, and it's a metaphor, but the external nature of the person's malus and their chesroinus, right? The evaluation of this person externally, like a checklist, seeing, what ticks what box. But when a person is trying to build a relationship in a deep way, it can take longer. It can take longer for a relationship to be cultivated. And sometimes the strongest relationships are not relationships that happen with a lightning flash. Relationships that took time. People getting to know each other, but in a deep way. Getting to build respect for one another by witnessing each other in different circumstances, different experiences, over a long period of time. So even though there wasn't that primary illumination of just the whole relationship happens, right, with a snap of a finger, but sometimes the longer a relationship can take to develop, sometimes the truer the relationship is. Like the longer it takes, the longer it lasts. Could be. It's just saying general principles. Could be. Could be this way. Biram, bazeh milached neshama leneshama, mechuche shel Amuna b'kedushas Yisrael. This is the way it is with the bond of soul to soul. Mikoicha rather, shel ha'emuna b'kedushas Yisrael. Believing in the holiness of another person, that even though on the outside there are difficulties with this new camera also, which like I said, just decides to wander away. It's like the physical expression of what some people listening to the shiur feel, but they don't do it physically. Okay, here you go. Thank you. You're just like... So, I have to figure out a way to fix that. When a person believes in the Kedushas Yisrael in the other, and that's what's being connected to, Nasa Sa'ava Eina Tliya B'davar, then the relationship is not dependent on anything. It's just essential. It's the essential I, meaning my essential identity, connecting to that person's essential identity. And all of the external things, even though in the minute it might not have appeared super, exciting right on the surface, with time, those things will also develop in the draw. But those things might take longer. A person has to come to appreciate those things, develop a taste for those things. Could be sometimes. But the main thing is there. Shua kesher hapnimi, which is the internal bond, and that's what we're after. That's what we're trying to build. This is the ultimate ideal, at least, in what's called shalom bayis. That there should be peace in the home, and a loving relationship between members of the family, not just husband and wives, but all members, siblings, parents to children, children to parents. Mitach simcha v'chavod, with joy and with dignity, with kavod, with honor, respect, one to the other. Even if, on the part of the wife or on the part of the husband, there is some kind of deficiency. It's very possible one of the spouses is super forgetful. They forget birthdays, they forget where they put the keys, they're just forgetful people. Or one of them is always late, right, and takes a very long time getting dressed. I'm not going to say which of the spouse that usually is, but it's possible that one of the spouses sometimes takes a very long time to get out of the house, and etc., etc. So all these different things, it could be one of them has some kind of deficiency that to the other it's annoying. They wish it wasn't that way. But now that their relationship goes so much deeper than those things, and they have that deep, deep connection, the whole vitality of the relationship comes from a much deeper place. So then it doesn't really matter. And it's the same thing here. If one of them is extraordinary in a certain thing, they have an amazing talent, they have a certain specific ability that sets them apart from the other, it doesn't matter. When one has something, the other one doesn't, they're able to respect each other, to say we're different, but the point of the relationship that we share goes deeper than all of this, right? It's these things are not the make it or break it, because they've already encountered each other in an extremely deep and essential way. Because of course, each one is totally okay with the other one being different and not being exactly the same as them. Because the relationship didn't depend on synonymity. It didn't depend on each of them being exactly alike or even exactly compatible on the surface. But the foundation is strong, right? The roots go deep, and then the tree can spread its branches in very different directions. But the tree is strong because of the roots. And the roots go deep, deep, deep underground. But Ramshay Eves Chias Menekudas Kesher Pnimis Ha'oila ala kol. They're drawing the vitality of this relationship from an inner point that goes far deeper than whatever is or isn't on the surface. Says Rav Kluger, the same is true for friends. Right, and over here he's speaking, of course, about Hasidim, right, and a group of friends that are supporting each other in Avodas Hashem. It could be a man, it could be a woman, right, but a real group of friends, not just a group of friends that like to hang out. People are really bound together in a very deep and real way. My mother still has her group of friends from when she was a girl in Toronto, classmates, and they still get together. Years, decades later, real friends, that even like the kind of friend that months and months can go by and you don't speak to them, but then when you do, you don't have to sort of catch each other up on the trivialities because you just sort of pick up the conversation. That kind of thing. It could be that there are major differences between this person and that person. And on the surface, you can't even imagine how these two people could tolerate each other. They're just so different. They're so different. Each footstep of one of them is in contrast, is opposing the pathway of the other. However, it does not matter, because what connects them is far deeper than what divides them. And therefore they're okay with recognizing this is his path or her path, this is my path. But the relationship is so deep that it touches a point that's way beyond. After that inner point has already been revealed, like we said prior, so obviously you don't want that each one should have differences that theoretically bother the other. However, the relationship is deeper than that. Obviously, if the relationship is super deep and it's made clear between one spouse and the other, between one sibling and another, between parents and children, that what connects us is beyond, and they relate to one another on that level, and they make sure that when they look at one another, when they relate to one another, they're speaking to that point, and that's what they see, then naturally there's going to be much more bandwidth to be able, slowly but surely, over the weeks, over the months, over the years, sometimes over the decades, to help each other navigate some of the more obvious and jarring differences, to bring them closer together even on the external. Right? But the main thing is that Nakuda Pnimis is already present. If it's there, then you can build. If it's not there, it's just not there. The goal is that we even want to bring that which is secondary, we want to bring that back into the picture as well. Gama Pashat Yisrael, even the simplest Jew in the world, Yodeya, knows and understands. Everyone understands they could have a relationship with a tzaddik. Everyone knows that. Even if they themselves are very, very, very far away, there's nobody who feels, I can't go into Rebbetzin Kanievsky, Zichron Livracha, right? I can't go in, because everybody felt like you could go in. Right? And think of any other Rebbetzin, Tzaddikas, somebody who can think of as being a tzaddik, where even though the differences are super, super vast in terms of lifestyle, in that case culture, right? Didn't grow up in Bnei Brak, certainly not in those kinds of families with those kinds of standards and those kinds of ashkafas, not at all. So what is it then? Says Rav Kluger, it's because, and he's going to flesh this out in the next page or two, the Nakuda Pnimis of the tzaddik is absolutely synonymous with the part of you that wants to go see a tzaddik, which is the inner tzaddik, right? Meaning it's the part inside that feels shayach to that. That what part of a Jew do they bring into Rav Chaim Kanievsky? The deepest yearning, the deepest desire to have some contact with kedusha. And in that place, it doesn't matter that we couldn't be more different, because that in that moment only that essential point is illuminated. Those are the points that are communicating. Kain gambe eskashras im chaverim, and that's the way that it should be with friends. Shemamin b'kedushas hanashamis, where what we connect to in another Jew is this essential holiness in the other Jew, what Rabbi Nachman would call the Nakuda Tova, the point of goodness. And that's the point within me that's connecting with the point within them. And then all of the other bits and pieces will either come along for the journey or they won't. But it's not mukhrach, because most of us make our assessments on a this worldly level, right? So obviously, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to more significant relationships, there has to be an alignment on the external aspects as well. Obviously, otherwise, everybody would be a zivug for everyone, and that's just not the case, right? Obviously. However, we're very quick, because we grew up in this realm called Olam Hazeh, we've become very accustomed to it, even though our neshamas really aren't. It takes the neshama a long time to figure out how to settle down into this world. It's unbelievable. You pay a lot of money for something and you can't get it to... I don't know what this means. It might explode. Hold on a second. Unplug it, plug it back in. I'm sorry. Okay, back here. Oh. I can't figure this thing out. Hello. Okay. So, the idea being that we become so accustomed to this reality that this is how we make our assessments. And we have opinions about other Jews, about other people, primarily based on externalities. What shul do they daven in? What community are they a part of? What's their hashkafa? How do they dress? Where do they go to school? This is the way our brain automatically thinks. And what Chasidus and Pnimis HaTorah is trying to help us do is to shift. Obviously, we still have eyes, and we're still going to, be conscious, and it's important to be conscious of differences, etc., etc., etc. But what Chasidus intends to do is to orient us in the Pnimius, right? Which means that the fundamental, essential point, first and foremost, is this is a holy person, who the essence of whom is synonymous with the essence of me already. Full stop. Then we can figure out, the other elements. But right away, what you begin with is there's an essential congruence between every single Jew. I would go even further and say every single human being. And maybe if you want to go even further, every creation. Because there's the godliness that's within everything already, which should make this world familiar. Which means no matter where we are, no matter what moment it is in time, no matter what we're interacting with or who we're communicating with, there's a fundamental sameness. That's the truest part of who we all are, because deep inside, we're all, waves emerging from the same ocean of divinity. This wave in this way, this wave in that way, this drop popping up in that way. But we're all fundamentally, we're all made out of that same substance. And I think the more that a person rises in consciousness, layer after layer after layer, the less likely they are to focus on the externals, and the more likely they are to first and foremost orient themselves toward the pnimius. Where again, it's not that we don't have physical eyes, we can't see what kind of yarmulke the person's wearing, and that part of the mind doesn't begin to already make all kinds of assumptions, right, which many times are generalizations and not true about that particular person, which of course is a very dangerous thing to do. But that's not where we look. That's not the primary focus. The primary focus is on the inside. So he says, Kain gambe hiskashrus im chaverim. This is the way it is when people connect with good friends. Do you guys want source sheets, by the way? Yeah, do you mind passing them? Source sheets over there in the back. Shahamamin behiskashrus im chaverim. When a person, Kain gambe hiskashrus im chaverim. The same applies in connecting with friends. Shahamamin b'kedushas haneshama, because a person who believes in the holiness of other souls, Yodea, that person will know shel marot hashoni v'hamerchak, no matter how distant things appear on the surface. Yachol tamid lias kesher amiti ben Yehudim hachafetzim ba'osin ukuda. There can always be a connection between two Jews who really want the same thing. Even if their pathways toward that same thing are different, even though they might have different opinions, they come from different places, they speak different languages, right away immediately, there's there's this bond. There's this connection that goes much deeper. Much deeper. Okay, you guys will have to suffice with audio, otherwise I can't keep on correcting the camera every minute. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is the Inyan. Now he writes an amazing thing. He quotes from the Newcomb Melech. V're'ei ma shekasa be'igaras hakodesh hanitfasa b'soif sefer hakodesh Newcomb Melech shenichteva b'pkudas harebi Rabbi Melech schus yagan leinu. From the very famous tzaddik Rabbi Melech of Luzhensk writes the following: Sipur advarim begoydel ha'achtos hachaverim ha'mestoifefim b'tzal tzaddik. He tells about the incredible connection, at least ideally, between those who are drawn in one group to follow the particular path of a particular tzaddik. V'zel shayne, and this is what he writes: Sheyesh b'neim ava gedola kol kach. There is such love between them. Yoser me'ahavas ava b'noi ubal im ishtay. More than the love of a father to his son, or a husband to his wife. This is how he describes the love between these Hasidim, like it used to be, people who are literally bound up in heart and soul to one path, whose whole life in its entirety was just serving Hashem. And they have an absolute unity among them. It's like they have one wallet. It's like they share finances. Like it's not, they don't make cheshbainas of whose money is whose, because they're totally committed to this path. And he says a dramatic thing: "Ve'ein chilik," and there's no difference b'neim leb'neihem el b'nei chavreim. Whose kid is whose? Like it's just they're raised by the group. This is the way that it was. It's hard for us to imagine such a thing. It probably sounds very unhealthy, but in that culture, in that state, this is how it was. Nobody knows whose kid is whose, right? But in a holy way, because there's so much oneness. Because the only thing that they want is the service of God. Believe shalem asher belibam, with a whole heart. When you have two of these individuals who come to speak among each other, you don't hear anything external, anything shallow. All you hear is them discussing the love of God, the awe of Hashem, the greatness of Hashem, and Hashem's grandeur, speaking about the Torah. And they help each other out to serve Hashem. And he says each one of this fellowship needs to be, or is, ideally, humble. And each one considers their friend to be greater than them. They teach each other in the service of Hashem and Hashem's Torah. And they're not acting with pride over any of their good character traits. And they feel comfortable sharing guidance with each other, musar, and helping each other. This is the way that it is. Even though there's distinction between them, they're one because they live out of that essential point, which is synonymous with the essential point of others. It's a famous thing on the very, very fundamental pasuk that, according to Hillel, is the foundation of the whole Torah. Right? You shall love your fellow like yourself. And so the tzaddikim say the premise of that is that a person has to love themselves first, which is deep enough. It's true. Right? In order to be able to be open to someone else, there has to be a self. Like the Kotzker Rebbe said, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. Right? Because it's a codependent. There's not two entities that are approaching the relationship in this healthy way where you have two parts that become a whole, because there aren't any parts. Right? There's just the folding into each other in such a way where there's something fundamentally missing. But on a deeper level, the Ramak, or Moshe Cordovero, in his sefer Torah Devara, says, the ahavta l'reacha kamoicha doesn't just mean that you should love yourself and then love your fellow like you love yourself. But a person is supposed to come to a level of consciousness where they realize that the other is themselves. That's what it means, kamoicha. Meaning, a person identifies their own sense of identity in so deep a way, in so essential a way, in so foundational, deep, deep beyond a name, beyond an occupation, what a person does for a living, beyond a person's circumstances, where a person was born and where they moved and where they lived and what happened to them in their life and all of this worldly metrics. A person sees themselves as being something so much deeper than that, then of course you can love everybody around you, because then when you look at someone else, even though on the surface there are distinctions, you don't see that, because you don't see that in yourself. You understand? So therefore, kamaycha, meaning if you have gotten in touch with that inner wellspring of value and depth and godliness and essentiality that goes well beyond any of the external, this worldly parameters of identity, so then it's easy to love somebody else. Does that mean that you'll be exactly like them? No. There will be differences, many differences. People come from different places. People have different experiences. People have different natures. The Gemara says the same way every person has a different face, which is a remarkable thing, right? There's no one in the world who looks exactly like me. It's an incredible thing. There are 8 billion people in the world. But every person has their own face. Every person has their own fingerprint, etc. Says the Gemara, every person has their own nature, their own worldview, their own perspective, nature, nurture, right? Shaped by different experiences, essential epigenetics that are passed along from generation to generation, etc., etc., etc. Bottom line is, each of us is going to be different. But true achdus is only possible, and this is a key point, not when two Jews can tolerate each other's differences for long enough to partner with them in some way, or join together with them in a stadium, or participate in some program with that. That's not what it is. Achdus is not the erasing of difference. Achdus is being able to live out of a place that is more fundamental than difference, and therefore, despite the difference, there is fundamental synonymity and connection that's deep, 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 and that isn't just surface, right? By plastering over differences so that we can be together. It's realizing, first and foremost, that's the key point, because it first and foremost begins with how we view ourselves, not how we view someone else. Because if we don't live out of that place, it's going to be very hard to find it in someone else. But if that's how we live, and that's how we begin to think about ourselves, I'm a chelek elokami mal, that is what I am. I'm a spark of divinity. I'm a messenger from beyond, right? I'm not here for me. I was put into this world on a mission. And this is what every single Jew has to carry in their heart and soul. We have a mission. I'm here to reveal godliness. I'm here to bring all of humanity back to Hashem. I'm not here for me. If a person lives out of that, so then the implications are very, very, very wide. The implications, let's even speak emotionally, we've mentioned this in the past, when things don't seem to go our way, right, and things fall apart in ways that it wasn't part of our plan in life. We lose things. We lose relationships. We lose people close to us. We lose. It could be a person is even, but it could be a person has like a pet, let's say, that they really, really cherished for a long, long, long period of time, and then it could happen. I'm sure that maybe some of you here have lost a pet, even. And maybe it's not even. Sometimes they're very deep relationships. A person has a dog. A person has some animal that they build a relationship with. And things don't go the way that we hoped they would. People lose things in life. So to the degree that it's about me and my plan, and me and what I want, the reaction is going to be extraordinarily painful. It's going to feel like nothing's working out. Things have unraveled. I can't go on. But the more that a person is able, and it could be very difficult, especially in the wake of a loss, but the more that a person is able to go deeper deeper, 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 and discover within themselves. We're so busy going out of ourselves all the time, we don't usually go inward, but there's a whole world inward. Like a person can go and discover within themselves the essence of who they are. Where I was never on this planet for me in the first place. I was only ever beholden to Hashem's plan. And that somehow He wants me to go through what I'm going to go through, both the good and the bad, chas v'shalom, the ugly, and all of it, and the bumps and the twists and the turns and the curveballs and all the different aspects. It's not an expression here, curveball is baseball, but all the different things that life throws our way. And I realized not only is that not like a b'di'evet, like something that went wrong. This is part of this whole lifetime that is all right from the standpoint of me being able to discover and embrace new opportunities to bring Hashem into this now. Because it wasn't about me. That relationship was a gift. But there was a relationship that was more primary than that subsumes this relationship, which means that, like the pasuk says, Hashem nasa and Hashem lakach, Hashem gives, Hashem takes. And that means that sometimes we get stuck in the context of what it is that God gives and takes, that we forget God. But if we manage to maintain that level of consciousness, then when the thing is taken, I don't feel like I lost everything. Because I still have the main thing. And the main thing was the mission. And the main thing was the Hashem who gave it to me. And therefore, when the thing is taken, it's another opportunity from Hashem to say, okay, how are you going to bring my light into this? Because now there's a void, there's a gap, there's a loss. Shine my light. Shine my light. Stand strong, stand strong. Don't give up. Carry on. Find a way to turn that experience into a lesson for others. Find a way. There's nothing that happens in life that's wrong. Even though it seems so wrong, from our perspective, and so not what Rabbi Nachman calls kiseder. There are things in life that go in order, like the right way, and then there's lo kiseder. There's things that just that go in the wrong direction, and things backfire, and things boomerang, and we lose what we thought we had. And Rabbi Nachman says the whole purpose of this life is to reach a level of consciousness, which is called Amuna, where you realize that all of the lo kiseder was actually kiseder. That all of the things that I thought were wrong, that it didn't go the way it was supposed to go, was actually, that's my ego. That's my sense of self. The truth is, it did go the way it was supposed to go, because everything goes the way it was supposed to go. And even though I don't understand it, even though I'll never be privy to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan and what He has in mind and why He does what He does, ever. Hashem says, your thoughts are not my thoughts. It's different. Hashem has a whole different plan, a whole different story. But to a person who's rooted in that deep, deep, deep sense of identity, they have the fortitude to be able to withstand even very challenging experiences, even great losses, because they're anchored in something deeper. And if we're only anchored on a shallower level, then when that level falls away, the chain is untethered and the ship breaks away. But when the anchor is deep, 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 and a person makes a commitment to say, Master of heaven and earth, no matter what, I'm with you. No matter what. And not only no matter what, but I'm willing to face and embrace whatever it is that you put me through, because I know that it's all you. There's only you, ein oid milvadai. And that's my primary relationship, even beyond the deepest, dearest relationships that we have with other human beings, who it's the way of the world. People pass. Relationships fade. But to a Jew who from the outset works on building this relationship, which means that they bury the anchor of their connection to Hashem deep, 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 deep in the most essential aspect of their identity, long before their own ego, meaning sense of self, name, ambitions, plans, etc., etc. Like when all of that is taken away and all that's left is why I am in this planet. Like why what it means to be alive. Why am I here? Why am I here is because my whole life is about revealing the presence of Hashem in this world. In the day, with good things that happen, and bless us all, there should be good things, but also in the nighttime. Also in loneliness, also in challenge, also in loss, also in difficulty, also in all kinds of hurt and pain. Like David HaMelech says, "Ve'emunas chabaleilos." Ve'emunas chabaleilos. To have Amuna in the dark. And I believe it's the Chazon Ish. I could be wrong. I think the Chazon Ish writes that people misunderstand what Amuna means. People think that Amuna means that we believe that everything will be good. And the Chazon Ish says that's not what Amuna is. How could a rational person believe that it is absolutely impossible that things won't go the way that I want them to go? Did you ever hear of the Holocaust? It didn't go the way 6 million people wanted things to go, or anybody else in the world. The Inquisition, the terrible things have happened in this world. So the idea that somehow everything's going to be peachy, loy haya v'loy nivra. It never was that way, and it's not likely to ever be that way until Mashiach is coming. So what does Amuna mean? Says the Chazon Ish. Amuna means that no matter what happens, I believe that it is good. That's what Amuna means. Not that it will be good according to my own brain and my own understanding. Amuna means, Ribbana Shalom, I'm with you for the long haul. I'm with you for the long haul. Now, it just so happens to be the Pasuk in Tehillim says, Habiteach b'Hashem, chesed yisov avenu. The more that a person anchors themselves in Amuna, the more likely it will be that things go right in their life, right? Even on a very pragmatic, practical level, the more that their emotions and their nature is more pleasant, and they're calmer, and they're with more Yeshiva Das, etc. And that can open doorways for them. And we manifest and attract different energies in all of it. But lo mochrach liot. Every person in this room goes through struggles, challenges. Every person you pass by on the street, everyone. It's the nature of being human. Adam la'amal yulad, the person was born to toil. Every person goes through things. And Amuna doesn't mean that I say to Hashem, I believe that everything will unfold according to my plan. Amuna means that no matter what unfolds, I am okay because I know that it will be according to your plan. And your plan is unfathomable to me, but I'm only here for you. The Pius Hetzner Rebbe, Hashem Yikam Damai, who was murdered, of course, in the Holocaust. So he knew a thing or two about Kiddush Hashem, about giving one's life al Kiddush Hashem. He says this point is most acutely revealed by this, that historically, even simple Jews, when given the opportunity to convert or to give their lives, throughout Jewish history, gave their lives. Other than extraordinary circumstances where they felt that they could pretend, and the Maranos, etc. By and large, generally speaking, not big tzaddikim, not the most impressive Jews in the world, someone put a gun to a person's head and said, you either bow down to the cross or whatever it is. People gave their lives, Shema Yisrael, and they gave their lives. And the Pius Hetzner says, in a moment like that, a person is forced to encounter their essential identity. And what's the implication of this? That a person would rather die, right, than continue living, but not in alignment with that essential connection to Hashem. It means that that's who we are. And in light of that, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Because all of the other things that we get so caught up in, and all of our projects, again, and ambitions, and our ideas, and what we want to produce, and accomplish, and do, and dream, and enjoy, and experience, and explore, and all the other words. Bottom line, when push comes to shove, and a person feels, chas v'shalom, metal on their head, it's not even a question. Because this life is not worth living. to a Jew who's plugged in on that level. Life is not worth living. Simple as it is. Because what does it mean? It means that I was only ever here in the first place for this. And if you should tell me that, well, you'll continue being here, but not for that, I'm ready to go. Because why else am I here? And it's like, well, wait a second. What do you mean? You're a father. You're a husband. Baruch Hashem. You have students. You have a job. You have... Shaveli klum. Without that, what's the point of everything else? With that, everything else is another vessel for that, right? And so Hashem is a part of every single aspect of all of our lives. But without that, what's the point? What is the point? I know I'm speaking in very sharp, stark terms, but I'm doing so because I'm trying to jolt us into that realization. We don't usually think like this. We're these are scary lines of thought, right? We don't like to. But sometimes it's an important thought experiment to bring us back to, why are we here? What is life really all about? What's it all about? So this is the nuca. But it begins with finding that point inside of us. Waking up in the morning with it. That's what Moida Ani is. Moida Ani lefanecha melech chai v'kaya. Shechazarta masi bechemla rabba manasecha. It isn't just waking up with gratitude. It's a mission statement. It's the reason for getting out of bed. It's because I'm grateful that you gave me back a neshama. Rabba emunasecha, so that I can say Yehei Shmei Rabba, meaning I can turn my life into a magnification of your sanctified and holy name. Another opportunity to make a Kiddush Hashem today. How? By wrestling with the dual challenge of, on the one hand, being an angel, because all of us are Kedem L'Maaseh Merkava, and our soul comes from the most frighteningly exalted place in Shemayim, and on the other hand, being a bit of a Behem also. Both. And I'm going to do my best today, when we wake up in the morning, to be in that fight. Doesn't mean I'll win every time. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. We'll struggle. Sometimes we'll fail. But Hashem, I want to let you know all of the other schedule items that I have throughout my day are an outgrowth of these two words. Now, of course, this is not what it means on a simple level. On a simple level, it means, Rabba Manasecha, God, your faithfulness is so great that I gave you my soul last night and you gave it back. Right? You're trustworthy. I'm suggesting a different interpretation. These two words are the mission statement of a Jew. Rabba Emunasecha. To increase faith in you. To be a beacon of your light to the world. To be a window so that when people look at me and my life, they're able to catch a glimpse of a deeper reality. That's why we're here. It's easier for a rabbi to do it, a rebbitzin to do it, but it's the mandate for each and every one of us, no matter how you spend your days, no matter which office you work in, no matter what office you don't work in, no matter who your friends are, no matter shopping in Tesco or doing anything else throughout your day, Rabba Emunasecha. I'm in an Uber. If it's appropriate, whatever the circumstance is, how can I find a way to increase faith in this encounter? How can God be on my lips? How can I steer every conversation back to, and it doesn't have to be faith religious, how can I bring it to something real, to something deep? How can I get people thinking? This is what it means to be a Jew. We've lost this throughout our exile because we're in such, fight or flight survival mode that we haven't been able to do this. But this was Avram Avinu's whole job. This was Avram Avinu's whole mission. Al tikra vayikra, says the Gemara. Don't read the word that Avram vayikra called out in the name of God. Ella vayakri. He caused others to call out in the name of God. And that's why he had this tent, you remember? And he gave all the food. It was the original Red Cross. Today Red Cross is a Christian organization. It was the original humanitarian aid service. He had a tent with doors on openings on four sides. All these stragglers through the desert, starving, thirsty, hungry. They came and he gave free food. Not only to Gentiles, to idol worshippers. Humans, didn't matter. Gave them food. And they sat and they ate and they wanted to thank him. And Avram Avinu said, don't thank me, because the food didn't come from me. Say thank you to the one from whom the food came. Zamru lemisha amar v'haya olam. Haidu v'shibchu. Give thanks lemisha amar v'haya olam. To me, that Maimer Chazal, that teaching from our sages, encapsulates the whole job, the whole task, the whole mission. Al tikra vayikra ela vayakri. So this is what it is to wake up in the morning, say, Ma'ida ani, thank you Hashem for giving me back my neshama. Right? She'echzarta bi neshmasi b'chemla, with your great compassion, for what purpose? Rabba emunasecha. And if for somehow, some way, that was stolen from me, and I was never allowed to mention your name ever again, and I was fundamentally forced into a different religion, this life is not worth living for me. And if every Jew lived with this clarity, where Judaism wasn't a nice thing that you did, once a week and went to synagogue and had a kiddush and, knocked some l'chaim's back with the buddies, or whatever level, but it was deep. You understand? It was my essence. It was my oxygen. It was the fundamental foundation of my identity. So then, naturally, when I look at other people, the outside doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how this person's dressed, what yarmulke this person's wearing, what shul, what chug, what chasidus. Zelo enyan. Because I'm so in touch with a part of me that's so deep that naturally when I look at someone else, that's the part of them that I see. Then there can be love. Then there can be achdus, there can be oneness. Not by creating an artificial oneness because this one comes into physical proximity with that one without them killing each other, but because there's a revelation of the way in which at the core they're already literally one. Not artificially, fundamentally. Okay, already one. Yeah.
I believe the Chazanish brings that point that Hashem does is good in response to the Baal Shem Tov's approach, where if you have strong enough belief that Hashem will do something, it will happen, which is whether to him becomes something, that's the question. So those two are kind of fundamentally opposing.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Sometimes we have this back and forth. I'm always telling you both, right? Both. Yeah. Not necessarily. They're not fundamentally opposing. Not necessarily both are true. What we say, you remember, I think last week we learned about graphology. We said, meaning to say there are no absolutes, right? So for someone to say, well, if you only think positively, everything will change, we can't say anything for sure. But it's certainly true what the Baal Shem Tov said, and that's why I threw it in the end. There is an aspect in which trach good and ved zayin good. You think good, it will be good, like in Chabad, in Berdichev, in Breslev, right? A lot of the during Hasidus, and this is a big push. But there's no guarantee. And inevitably when things happen that aren't in aligned with your optimistic, positive thinking, that's where the Chazon Ish kicks in. But that means that a person has to fundamentally root themselves in the Chazon Ish's perspective, and then embark on all the positive thinking and all the hope and all the tefillah and all the belief that, like I said, really Hashem loves us and Hashem will do the best, not only for, from His perspective, but even from our perspective too. But the point is that if a person is anchored in the Chazon Ish's teaching, then even no matter what the reality is, whether it aligns with, which it may, in the way that the Baal Shem Tov teaches, you can alter your reality or not, the person's okay. The person has Yichud HaHisbodedus.
Aren't they fundamentally different interpretations of what B'tocha mean? One means believing that Hashem will do what I think is good, and one is I trust whatever Hashem is doing.
I'm saying they can be both. Because from my perspective, I believe that Hashem will do the best thing, even for me. That's the optimistic thinking. But that a thought or hope is undergirded, right? Is underlined by a fundamental acceptance of whatever will be. And you can have both. Both can be true. Yeah.
Isn't it just how can it be a minute to think that we, how in a way, to give ourselves the power to change reality, to say that Hashem will do what I want him to do, it isn't that, like, which way is that?
Right, so the caveat is, I have a whole shiur on this online, that's called, is the law of attraction, a Jewish concept. So we go through a very, very important teaching from Rabbi Nachman and Sichas on the topic, and the caveat being is that I think all the tzaddikim took it as a given, that the thing that the person wanted wasn't for them. The person wanted parnasa so that they could have a home big enough, to be able to host lots of Shabbos guests. The person wanted shalom bayis and things so that they could serve Hashem in what they perceive to be the best way. But obviously, we're not talking about a person like, it's not wizardry. It's not like Hogwarts. We're not talking about like some kind of manipulating God and manipulating reality. That's not what's being discussed.
Even wanting a big house where you can have lots of guests, but still, like saying that, like, oh, if I think it hard enough. I mean, I do agree. I mean, obviously it's not my agreement. I do understand the way that can be that, we can channel things and whatever. But to say that, like, if I want hard enough, Hashem give me a big house. If Hashem doesn't think I should have a big house, then True.
But again, the natural assumption is that why shouldn't what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants align with what I perceive to be good? Why not? Well, why can't both be true? Meaning, why can't Hashem restructure the whole nature of reality so that me having a big house one day, will align, with everything that he needs to work out for my gilgul and my tikkun. Meaning, so the point is, there's fundamental uncertainty. None of us know, but the tzaddikim say sometimes just believing that Hashem is so good that I can actually have, like what the Lubavitch Rebbe called, he used to bless everyone, not just with a good life, but he used to say, HaToiv, HaNireh, HaNiglis. It should be revealed goodness, right? Because everything's good. But there's a way where it could be even revealed good. So why shouldn't I want to channel that down? And I can channel that with Amuna. I can channel that with Tefillah. Sometimes we said the reason that Hashem withholds something from a person is because he wants the person to daven. And once the person davens with hope and belief that their davening can actually change the situation, Hashem says, well, that's all I needed from you, and then he can change the situation. There's so many different calculations none of us know. And I think that's what's being discussed here is prepare for all eventuality.
I just like the concept of like thinking and it will be good. I feel like the way it's sometimes sold is like, oh, you just have to, if you just think it hard enough or want it hard enough, Hashem will do it for you. And I just feel like it doesn't feel like right.
I'm curious why you don't think I tend to agree with you. I'm just curious what's bothering you about it.
As in, like, because I think you can reach a level where for sure, like, people reach high enough levels and their will aligns with Hashem's will, and I don't imagine that those people are on the level where their will really aligns with Hashem's will, but I understand how that could be a concept, but I just think a lot of the way it's just sort of sold is like, oh no, like it's fine, just think positively and it'll be fine, and I don't think that's accurate or real enough. Right.
So I would phrase it differently. I would say it's possible that positive thought, both in a spiritual sense, because that's what the tzaddikim teach us. I can show you many sources which say this, and also in a practical sense, which I'm more noted to. If you think positive, you'll be a more positive person. You'll naturally. So we'll say it is possible. I will say the word possible. And I don't like blanket statements. I don't like saying, okay, this is what it is, because none of us know anything. So we say, it is possible. It is possible that could channel something. It's possible. But let not our whole Amuna rely on that. And if something else happens that isn't exactly in alignment with that, the point is that we're anchored in I'll go along with his plan. You know what I'm saying? And I don't need my plan, but I'm not either going to relinquish my own desire, because that's the purpose of tefillah. Hashem wants us to feel. Hashem wants us to sense a lack. Otherwise, what are we davening for Rafeinu or Baruch Aleinu or anything else in our tefillah? Because why don't we just say, no, God knows what's best and I don't need anything. Hashem wants us to feel. So we're trying to mediate these two realities. Yeah.
So when Gedalia Fenster talks about the whole concept of manifestation, and like, if you think that your leg will be fixed, then your leg will be fixed. Is that a Jewish concept?
You'll have to listen to the shiur. the answer is it depends. It depends what's the context. With what nature is the person engaging with that energy? In the secular world, it's a lot about abundance, right? Financial abundance. Everybody wants a big house. Everybody wants more car. It's very ego-oriented. And then there's the sense that if you're in control, like you're the one who's going to manipulate the energies through your... That's not what the tzaddikim mean. The tzaddikim mean if you approach it with such humility and such awe, with the realization of what God gifted you, the ability in your koyach, haratzon, that hopefully what we want, like I mentioned before, is in alignment with, to be able to facilitate living, in a holier, more elevated way. Gewaldic, but we can't say blanket rules. It's in my opinion, it's dangerous because life is such a multivariate equation. We cannot say anything black or white. Always have to say we don't really know. So we have to have a theology that covers all of the bases. It keeps a person anchored. Okay, so we're up to Isvav. We didn't get quite as far, but I think there were a lot of deep, important points to deepen this. I would say if there's one takeaway, it's that point of the V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha starts with you and me, right? Meaning it starts with a person encountering within themselves that essential point of self, right? Where they don't focus on external layers. Their whole essence is just beyond any of the other stuff, and that will enable them to see that in another Jew. And what is that essential point? Is the Rabbi Amuna. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's what we go to bed with at night. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. This is our whole life. This is our whole mission, our whole purpose. And Hashem should help us to fulfill it with joy and with confidence, with courage. That's our session. Okay. Thank you all for joining. Have an amazing night, amazing rest of your week. Thank you to everybody. All the best. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you. I'm sorry the camera is not working out so well, but we'll have to get him to behave at some point anyway. Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much.
ישמח לי מבקשי השם יברידה יראיו